Welcome, everyone.
Like the karakia in the name of this house says, we engage the beautiful southerly winds of Wellington, famous here in the South Pacific. And here comes today the mini waka of those winds of Aotearoa to welcome you to your conference today. On the good thought of goodwill to all humankind, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, mauri tū, mauri o. Good boy. So the name of our rōku was Hiwa, and very humble to come here today. That item that you just saw there was about one of our ancient ancestors, Maui. You might have seen Moana 1 and 2, same Maui, but we've been telling the story way before Disney even was important once upon a time. And so today we share with you the living taonga and our unique culture with you here today to celebrate coming together today. Tēnā.
Carl? Kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea ngāro. Ki runga ki tēnā o tātou. Kia māhea te hua mā ki hikihi. Kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori. Tuturu whakamaua kia tina. Haumi e, hui e, tāki e. Kia ora koutou katoa, and a very warm welcome to NZGDC 2025. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you so much, of course, to the Hiwa Crew. That was such a powerful performance, and I can't express how much gratitude I feel opening this year's ceremony with kapa haka. So, my name is Josh Kamo, and I am your MC for this weekend. And I am so glad to be sharing the stage with none other than the chair of the NZGDA, Carl Leduc.
Thank you, Josh. It is a pleasure to be your chair for my second term, and we have a very jam-packed morning and next few days for you all. But first, it would be my pleasure to welcome the Honourable Dr Shane Reti, Minister of our Science, Innovation and Technology sector, to the stage to say a few words. Thank you.
Nā mihi te rangi, nā mihi te whenua, nā mihi kia koutou, kia ora mai tātou. E tuatahi ki te mana whenua, tēnā koutou. Ko tēnei taku mihi e tuku ana ki koutou, ko tēnei te mihi, kia ora mai tātou. Thank you very much for your very warm introduction and for inviting me here today. This is an exciting event. I've flown down specifically from Whangarei to join you here this morning, and I'm very pleased to be here. The theme for this year's conference draws inspiration from a Māori proverb that recognises the importance of people, relationships and human capital. To me, this highlights that it's the people, creators, storytellers, artists, coders, testers, producers and players who make this industry what it is and who make New Zealand's game development industry unique. In my maiden speech a decade ago, forever recorded in Hansard, I said, quote, "It's cool to be a geek," unquote. I said this with a background in computer science and informatics, and as a badge of honour, an acknowledgement for a later career as an informatician in the United States. You can imagine my delight in taking over the science, innovation and technology portfolio. Relevant to this forum, while I wouldn't necessarily call myself a gamer, it was in my teens in the United States when I first encountered computer games as the arcade game Space Invaders, and this was also probably the last time I substantively gamed back in the early 1980s in the dungeons of Castle Wolfenstein. Nonetheless, I'm very pleased to be here to celebrate New Zealand's thriving game development sector and to release the Year 2 review of the Game Development Sector Rebate, one of the government's key initiatives to support the sector. I'm also pleased to announce another change with further support this government is making to ensure the game development sector continues to grow and innovate, and I'll talk to that shortly. Game development pushes boundaries, technologies, creative and culture, but boundaries can only be pushed because behind every innovation is a person, a team, a community. Whether it's reimagining gameplay, building immersive worlds, developing new IP, or crafting emotional narratives, it's the people behind the scenes who make it happen. And to support people to thrive, the sector needs strong foundations, good infrastructure, reliable support, and a commitment to getting the basics right. That's why this government is focused on developing the sector, ensuring the engine supporting the gaming ecosystem is robust, responsive, and future-ready. This means ensuring support comes not only from the Game Development Sector Rebate and Centre of Digital Excellence, but also from export-facing agencies like New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, helping showcase New Zealand's innovations and games to the world. So I'm excited to be able to release the Year 2 review of the Game Development Sector Rebate, a rebate that commenced in 2023. I want to share some stats from the Year 2 review and the NZGDA's industry survey that highlight how well the sector is performing. You are part of a highly productive, creative and innovative industry. The game development sector continues to show amazing growth. From the Year 2 review, we know that in 2024, revenue was $513 million. The industry survey indicates that 2025's revenue will be over $750 million. This is a 40% increase in revenue. In context, that is 50% higher than all export revenue from wool in 2024. The horticulture and kiwi fruit sector to March 2025 was the top export performer at 33% growth. The projected gaming sector export performance exceeds this. If we compare with our friends across the Tasman, the Australian sector revenue was about 370 million New Zealand dollars. It is clear that New Zealand and all of you are punching above your weight. New Zealand's game development sector revenue is on track to be over $1 billion by 2027. Now that's something worth celebrating, and a year earlier than previous projections. Your industry continues to innovate through research and development. The Year 2 reviews shows that some studios are using their rebates to invest in R&D, and that many are also receiving the research and development tax incentive, further highlighting that the sector is orienting towards innovation. In 2013, and then again last year, Grinding Gear Games, for example, pushed the action role-playing game genre forward with Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2, setting the bar for ethical monetization models and deep customization. I watched a YouTube video last night where the YouTuber said, quote, "When another person asks you, what are you thankful for, do you respond with Path of Exile or the wrong answer?" Unquote. Pickpock has continued building on their successful Into the Dead franchise with Our Darkest Days, combining gameplay with a user narrative. A YouTuber again told me last night that Joe, one of the 13 survivors, has strong shoulders, so he has extra backpack space, that he's a gearhead, so he has extra resource for each dismantled item, but loses morale if his hunger is low. The YouTuber then told me that he really likes Joe and uses him as the cleanup guy all the time, so there you go. Employment in the sector is growing fast. The industry survey records 29% job growth, from developers to artists, writers, QA testers, producers, and community managers. The Year 2 review shows that your industry is multifaceted, and the industry survey highlights your diversity, drawing skilled people from a range of disciplines and backgrounds. I'd like to highlight that the Year 2 review also shows that the sector has a strong ecosystem with connectivity between firms, community organisations, educators, investors and government agencies. It's clear that you have built more than games. You've built a community where the Centre of Digital Excellence in Dunedin nurtures startups and supports growth, where the NZGDA connects developers, advocates for the sector and hosts world-class conferences like this one, where studios like Pickpock, Grinding Gear Games and Deepfield Games create global hits and mentor the next generation. A community where you share your games with the world, with a fantastic showing at Gamescom in Cologne, with 96% of your revenue actually coming from international audiences. The industry survey shows domestic sales have also seen their largest increase yet. And you've done all of this while staying true to your roots, infusing your games with local stories, cultural authenticity, and a uniquely Kiwi spirit. We in turn are playing our part. Minister Stanford recently announced a primary and high school pivot towards the STEM subjects, and I budgeted $64 million in the last budget 2025 for a focus on STEM subjects in universities, and recently announced $70 million for endeavours in artificial intelligence. To the gaming sector specifically, we have confidence in your industry, in your hard work, and I can confirm that funding for the GDSR will continue as a baseline, giving certainty to firms, workers and investors that the government supports your creative sector. This baseline will continue to be regularly reviewed. Code, or the Centre for Digital Excellence, has a mandate that looks to assist digital game prototypes and later stage game development. This includes Kickstart to create innovative working game prototypes, Startup for more developed concepts, Scale Up for businesses that are looking to expand, and Service Start for businesses providing tools as technical services for game developers as well as travel grants. Code is successful and popular. There are roughly twice as many applications as there is funding through Code. So, to support further early stage innovations, I am announcing today that I am doubling the current MB funding to Code with an additional $2.75 million per year, $5 million in total, as further support for early stage game development, game studios and startups. Officials are working through the details on this support with code, and it will be available to startups for the next 2 years beginning in 2026 and then on review. In closing, take this doubling in funding for what it is, that I am backing this games development industry and the exciting economic growth that you are demonstrating. I want to congratulate you all again on your hard work, and I hope that you take a moment today to celebrate everything that you have achieved and what the future holds. Thank you. Kia ora mai tātou.
Wow, that is fantastic news. Really a pleasure to hear from you, Minister Reti, and that amazing breaking news that is going to help our industry move forward at an incredibly faster rate than we already are. On the screen here is the 2025 industry survey data. There's a lot of data to fill on this page. All of this information is now public and out, and we would love everyone in the community to share it far and wide and to, just speak and share the great news from our community. Lots of uptick arrows. The 38% rise in revenue year on year is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm a bit emotional. This is all really exciting and a really fantastic time for our industry, and everyone should be really proud. Great, so we've got a busy schedule. I think the next slide here, I'm going to hand it over to Josh.
Thank you so much, Carl. I have to admit, I don't think I could quite succinctly or beautifully emphasize the importance of our theme for this year quite as well as Minister Reti, so I probably won't. That being said, our theme for this year is, of course, the people at the heart of games, reflecting the whakatauki, he aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. This whakatauki reminds us that life isn't just about the individuals, but our connections to one another, the importance of compassion, consideration, and celebrating what people bring to this world. Speaking of, now it's time for one of my favorite moments of any ceremony, the awards. The Pioneers of Play Awards were established just last year, excuse me, in order to honour the NZGDA member studios who have helped shape our industry. In our inaugural year, we celebrated those with 20 or more years of contribution. Industry pillars such as Pickpock, Meteor Interactive, and of course, Simon McCallum, who helped launch NZGDC back in 2004. This year, it's time to celebrate a new group of pioneers. A new group of pioneers. We're recognizing studios who, while slightly more youthful, have still been a vital part of our industry for at least 15 years. With that in mind, it is my great pleasure to announce the recipients of this year's Pioneers of Play Awards. Firstly, Ninja Kiwi. Founded in 2006 by Scott Walker and Tosh Baird, soon to reach their 20-year milestone in 2026. Please welcome the team from Ninja Kiwi.
Thank you very much. I'm Scott Walker, the CEO of Ninja Kiwi, alongside and on behalf of Chris Harris and Stephen Harris, the co-founders of Ninja Kiwi. It's an incredible honor to be recognized for our time and our fun. We at Ninja Kiwi have built an amazing team, and I am so happy that we have spent so many of those 19 years together. We have also built a very strong and sustainable business that has allowed us to be one of the many games that represent New Zealand games on the top charts around the world. I'm also very proud of the fact that we're now working with small, really talented teams like Astronaut Diaries and Whistling Wizard to help create the next strong, sustainable game studios that can help New Zealand compete on the world stage. Thank you.
Next up, Grinding Gear Games, also founded in 2006. Now, Carl will accept today's award on behalf of Jonathan Rogers. They'll also celebrate their 20 years in 2026 as well. And finally, Cerebral Fix, founded in 2009. Today's award will be accepted by Chelsea Rapp on behalf of founders Ben DeLaker and Jeremy Cadillac.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of Ben and Jeremy and Cerebral Fix, it's my pleasure to accept this Pioneer of Play Award. What started out as a few passionate people at an internet cafe has grown to a studio working with some of the biggest brands in entertainment. And for nearly 20 years, it's been our great pleasure to serve as a launch pad for hundreds of careers, including my own, and bold new ventures like Black Salt Games, Disc 2, and Fantail Games. And none of it would have been possible without a lot of the people in this room. Ben and Jeremy would like to thank Mario Winans, Tyrone McCauley, and Stephen Knightley, whose support not only helped us flourish in those early days, but who continued to champion all of us every day. Their dedication and the spirit of this community are reminders that being from New Zealand is not a limitation, but an advantage. Our distance gives us perspective, our size makes us collaborative, and our creativity thrives on doing a lot with a little. And while we create for global audiences, we never lose sight of where we came from, or of the values that make this community unlike any other in the world. All of us who call Cerebral Fix home are excited to continue to cultivate the next generation of creators, represent New Zealand on the global stage, and tend to bold new ideas of our own. Thank you.
Wonderful. Let's give one more round of applause for all our recipients and pioneers of the Play Award recipients. Congratulations to the winners and to the future pioneers who will join them in years to come. Okay, before we move forward, a few important housekeeping notes for you to enjoy a safe and enjoyable NZGDC. Evacuation points, bathrooms, and refill stations. Exciting. Tarkina's designated evacuation points can be seen on the map here. Staircases are located just outside of, well, I mean, you can see them. My goodness. Bathrooms can be found on the southeastern corners of the building on each floor. Water refill stations are clearly marked and stationed in the hallways. Or you can visit the Maitona Quiet Room on level 1 for refreshments and a quiet place to relax. If you find yourself lost, our wonderful volunteers are here to help. It's easy to spot them in their green hats. I was really hoping some of them would be in here today. So, oh yes, say hi, volunteers. If NZGDC needs to alert attendees of scheduling changes, updates, or emergencies, you'll find the announcements in the NZGDC companion app, Entergy Events. If you've installed the app, it's also helpful to open your profile, scroll down to the bottom, tap the Updates button to keep on top of any content updates to the app. And if you haven't downloaded the app yet, you can find it as well as the necessary login info in your email. It should be labeled Important Info inside. You'll also notice our workforce survey, also formerly known as the salary survey. We encourage you to take part via the QR code or visit the business booths outside. And finally, don't miss our departure lounge closing event. You won't want to miss this one. I'm very excited to showcase something that Gina and Joy have been working very hard on. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speakers. Please welcome David Gaider and Liam Essler from Summerfall Studios, the creative team behind the award-winning Stray Guards.
Welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? Excellent. It is our absolute pleasure to be here today. We've spent a lot of time at NZGDC, both of us, over the years. I think this is maybe my 8th NZGDC, and I think your 4th?
Yeah, I've actually been here more often than I've been at GCAP.
Pretty wild. So we're here today to tell you a little bit about the lessons that we've learned running Summerfall over the past almost 8 years now. Yeah. It has been a journey with highs and lows and more highs. And can't wait to sort of get into it and share it with you.
Yeah.
So who the fuck are we? Summerfall started in 2017 or 2018, depending on who you ask. Right. And it was founded by myself, David, and our co-founder, Ellie Young.
Yeah. For who I am, once upon a time, long ago, I worked at a little company called BioWare. I made a few games, like started with Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Om, Neverwinter Nights, moved on to being the lead writer of the Dragon Age series, up until about 2016 when I left. A few Dragon Age fans still have yet to get the memo. It's fine. It's fine. It was a big achievement. But I left in 2016. I moved on to a company in Edmonton, in Canada called Beamdog for a while, and until I met Liam, and we started talking, and eventually moved on to come to Australia, move here, move there.
It's all the same part of the world.
Not the same country, it's true. And started Summerfall Studios, which has been a great experience.
And as for me, I've been around for about 16, 17 years. I started actually as a modder, hilariously enough, modding Baldur's Gate 2, which Dave wrote. And over the years, I've gotten to work for many incredible companies, including some Kiwi ones. I have done a lot of different roles over my career to variable levels of success. There was like a couple of years there as a programmer that I don't like to talk about. I've done production and event management. I ran GCAP in Australia for several years. And then got really tired of running events and really wanted to get back into game development. And that is more or less how Summerfall came to be through a bit of a rogue conversation at GDC in 2017. 2017, yeah. Where we were both at a bar and were throwing around, like, oh, what's your dream studio? Like, if you were to make a studio, what would it be like? And as we talked...
It was the same studio.
It was one of many moments of strange, bizarre serendipity in our story.
Yeah.
Summerfall, since then, has done a lot, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, when we first started talking, initially Liam and I, our conversation was supposed to be, if we were going to start a studio, like, what would we do? And it quickly turned into what the first project would be. And I threw out, well, why don't we do a musical? We're both gay. It seems like the next logical step.
That's a natural progression.
Yeah. It was only half a joke, because it was this thing I'd wanted to do on Dragon Age back in the day. I never got to do. So I'm like, I haven't checked this off my bucket list yet. And somehow it just happened, and we did it. And it went really well. It turned into Stray Gods, the role-playing musical. We moved on to a piece of DLC for it, which makes it sound like it wasn't much effort, but when it's interactive musical numbers, it was actually a lot more than it seems. And that was the DLC Orpheus for Stray Gods. And then we released Malice into early access this year to be released fully in probably a couple of months.
Well, maybe less.
Yeah.
So how are things going? Well, I don't know if anyone's read the news in games recently. Broadly around the world, it's been a tough one.
Yeah, if you're having a banner year, fantastic, all to you. But I mean, I think we're all at least aware of the number of layoffs there have been across the industry. The publishers are being a little bit reticent to open the purse strings, and a lot of smaller studios especially are feeling the pinch.
It's been a tough year all round, not only politically, but yeah, also in our industry. I know I've had conversations with a lot of you over the past year about, you know, how that is replicated here as well. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that even though our industry is more successful than it ever has been, the human cost of that is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And that is more or less why we started Summerfall, actually.
Yeah, but I think we can. While Summerfall's not immune to the kind of year we've been having, I think what we'd like to do is at least lead you through a few of the lessons that we've learned along the way. Obviously, not all of you have your own studio or even dreaming of starting your own studio, but hopefully some of these lessons will also be of use to you.
Honestly, if anyone comes to me asking me about starting a studio, my usual answer is, oh God, don't do it. It's so hard, y'all. So I think one of the very first things that we started to talk about when we were talking with Ellie about starting Summerfall was, you know, what was our primary purpose going to be? Why did we exist? And the thing that we all agreed on strongly was that we had worked at many relatively shitty places, not because people were bad people, but because a lot of the things like inertia, a lack of thought about things like culture and who you work with were prevalent.
I think in my experience, it's not that when you have companies where people talk about, you know, oh, the guys were very hard to work with, or in my experience, it's never, well, never is a big word. It's often not intentional. It's often, but these bad things often happen by lack of thought given as to the repercussions that what people with power can have on people who don't. And I think that, well, that's something that happened in a lot more places than in the games industry, but certainly that's been the case with us as well.
And whenever I think about culture, I come back to a panel that I was on many years ago with a former boss of mine. It had been several years since I'd worked at his company, and we were giving a talk to the IGDA Next Gen Leaders program, which for anyone who doesn't know is like a diversity leadership program. And a question came to us around starting a studio and culture. How do you build a good culture? What is the importance of a good culture? And all of us on the panel, except for my former boss, spent a great deal of time speaking about how critical it was, how important your people were, et cetera. And it got to my boss, and he said, well, culture's a year 3 problem. You have to build success, and then you can fix the culture. And nothing has illustrated to me why the games industry is how it is in many ways, except that quote. And it really stuck with me. And it was something that we talked about when we started Summerfall. Starting a company with any culture is critical. And it doesn't just start at the top, but for the people who begin a studio, the early people at a studio, the culture comes from you because your behavior becomes the acceptable norm. So the things that you do, the way you respond to feedback, how you deal with criticism, all of these things become how everyone at the company thinks they should respond to feedback and criticism. And so whenever you're in a leadership position, it's really important to remember that your behavior becomes the bar. And so when you're thinking about working on a project, no matter if you're starting a studio or joining somewhere, it's incredibly important to think about how you pick those people, how you choose the people that you work with, because that is going to influence the culture of the place that you're joining or that you are creating more than anything else. And I think that the biggest lesson that I think that we learned through this time was more or less that we need to focus on hiring people who are not like us.
So when I talk about things that happen because we don't think about them, hiring is often a main thing. You get the guys running a company and they want to hire. And it's very easy if you don't think, oh, we need to actually focus on finding people who aren't us, to come up with excuses why you end up hiring people who are, right? Oh, she didn't feel like a good fit, or I feel like they would be argumentative, things like that, and that's how you end up with a team that mostly looks and acts like you do, and which can be good in some ways, but also ends up that everybody also has the same blind spots, right? I know that as an example, I had one of our employees who was very new at the time, Sasha Much. She came in and she had come from a previous company where she had had a lot of difficulty trying to use her voice, trying to bring up issues and getting actively pushed back down. And there was a point where we were early on in making Stray Gods, and she wanted to bring up an issue she thought with the visual presentation of Grace, our heroine. And honestly, she mentioned it, she brought it up, and I poo-pooed it. I heard it, I'm like, no, I don't want that in the game. And I shut her down. And she stopped, and she had to think, okay, is all the stuff that Dave and Liam had talked about, is it just talk, or do I take a chance and push this some more? And I didn't realize at the time that this was an act of bravery on her part. To me, I've had a voice. I've been in the industry a long time. To me, I came from an industry where having shouting matches in a meeting was the norm back in early days in BioWare. So not talking didn't seem weird to me. But so then realizing that she went to our lead artist and brought it up, and then he talked to some others, and they came to me as a group and they said, "Hey, we want you to reconsider this. We think this is important." And I was taken aback. And I had to stop and realize, this was important to them. I have to recognize their voice. And I said, you know what, you're right. We ended up changing it, and I thought that was an important first step.
And there were many points along the way where having a diverse group of people who thought very differently to us, who had very different backgrounds and experiences, came in critically helpful.
Yeah, like talking through, during Stray Gods, we had one of the plots had a theme of suicide. And it felt very sensitive. And when you have a group of and I think that is common when the teams are young, that these are liberal-minded, progressive people who are very concerned about how these themes are viewed by the audience. Is it problematic? And you can sometimes end up in a tailspin where you want to make sure that it's not offensive. But if that is the number one thing you're concerned about, I think that can be sort of veer off the importance, perhaps in the wrong direction. But the alternative is not to do nothing, not to have the conversation. So as a group, learning how to talk through the concerns, viewing how easy is what we're talking about to be misconstrued in a way that we don't want? How important is this plot to us? And working that through. And it actually felt like that was the very first, I think, really good result where everyone felt like that we'd gotten our concerns, we made some tweaks, and it felt good. Okay, this second lesson is maybe with me, but you have to understand, if you're a producer out there, I apologize in advance. I came from a AAA company where the point of producers was to lie. They made a schedule, they existed to make a schedule that was a lie. And we knew it was a lie. And they knew it was a lie. And their point was to deliver that lying schedule up to the powers that be so that they could nod and say, yes, that is the size of the game and the time we want, well done. And everybody who was working on the game's like, we will never make it in that time. So they would come to me, ask me for commitments, okay, this pound of writing, how long is that going to take? And I'm like, oh, about 3 months. And I'm like, a month and a half? So that was my main experience with research. I think I had one they produced it eventually, they embedded with us, that existed to actually help me make stuff. I was like, is that a thing producers can do?
God forbid.
And they took him away. So that was just, that when I started when we started Summerfall, I had, admittedly, an anti-producer stance.
And as a co-founder who is a producer, this was challenging. I think that we spent a lot of conversations arguing about, what is the virtue of different parts of production. And what this forced me as a producer, a relatively experienced producer, to do was really examine, why do we do these things? What is the virtue of a sprint? How does it work? What is the point of a retro? And in making sure that Dave really understood these things, it actually forced me to re-examine a lot of assumed knowledge. And so we don't run Summerfall perfectly agile, which, there is no form of perfect agile. That is the point of agile. But through that experience, it really helped us to create our own culture of production, which, many people came in and added to over the years. But I think that finding good producers can be the difference between, death or great success.
As an example, I slowly learned to appreciate production. A big example, he mentioned retros. I hate retros.
Ask anyone who's ever worked at Summerfall about retros, and they will talk about how Dave complains about retros.
If somebody in the middle of the afternoon on a Friday for okay, it's time for retro, inevitably in the back of the room, you can hear me going, ugh. And yet, when we did our first big retro, we'd hired a producer who insisted on having them, and I was like, all right, I am willing to roll with the process. And they had a retro, and I realized, again, it's like the story with Sasha. I realized, maybe I don't need a retro per se. I've been through 25 years of process, talking about process and working towards the way I work now. But it's a chance for members of the team who are more junior to be able to express themselves, to express concerns, to ask questions, sometimes ask questions of me, which like Liam talking about having to actually think about protection, sometimes even, yes, I have done narrative design, say, for a certain way.
1,000 years.
25 years, thank you. But sometimes it's not bad to have somebody question me and say, well, why do you do it that way? And I go, I don't have an answer for that. maybe it deserves an answer. So, all right, I sort of see that this is something that maybe needs to happen. I think we learned as well that when it comes to producers, you have people producers and you have technical producers. And if you have a producer who's only doing one thing, they're going to have to do the other. Like we started off with a people producer, and that meant that Liam had to, while that producer existed to take stuff off of Liam's plate, Liam had to pick up the slack on the technical producer side.
And I am not a good technical producer. I am a people producer, so that was bad for all of us.
And then we had eventually had a technical producer, but then again that meant that Liam had to pick up the people producer side. And if you don't have a producer at all at your studio, someone is still the producer. Someone is doing the work.
Someone's doing both of those.
Yeah, both of those jobs.
And they're not necessarily the same person.
Yeah.
It's important to acknowledge that is the case. And, the point of a producer a lot of the time is reliability, predictability, to ensure that things don't go over. And I've worked at a lot of places with very bad production practices. I specifically remember one job that I had where I was doing what we call death crunch, which is basically 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day. And I did this for 3 months leading up to launch, and it was brutal. I was a lot younger and I could kind of do that then but whenever I think back on it now, whenever I'm having a bad day and I feel like I'm not being productive, I compare myself to that time where I was doing 14 to 16
Like that
hour
becomes
days.
the new bar. I had the same thing when I started in the industry at BioWare. Crunch was just the norm. You did not question it. When we got to the end of Baldur's Gate 2, there was days when I would sleep in the office, and so I could pick up the next morning because it was just so much better than actually going home for a brief amount of time, and I didn't have to waste any time on the drive in between because we were just working, and it was about passion, of course, right?
Nobody was telling us necessarily to come and stay and work for that time, but we wanted to do a good job.
And so that becomes the new bar of how you feel. Like a day when I felt productive is when I put in 12 hours of work, and that's not very healthy, is it?
A lot of the time, that work is quantity and not quality. And sort of what I found over time was that while, yes, I could get a lot of poorly done tasks completed, rarely did I have the time to actually consider what I was doing. And so when we started to talk about Summerfall, we were really determined that we didn't want to repeat these mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, we had worked at a lot of places that did this, and we put that front and center as part of our objective to like put people are more important than the games that you make, right? Your team is far more important than the products that come out the other side. And we did that. And so we were determined that we wouldn't do crunch and we would really limit overtime. So over the course of Stray Gods, I think we did just over 100 total hours of overtime across the team, which for a project that took 5 years to make, it was pretty impressive. We shipped Stray Gods, you know, like I think I was actually in Stockholm when we shipped because BG3 had moved their release date.
Liam somehow manages to never be in Australia whenever we actually ship any game.
It's very strange. And, you know, our lead engineer like broke a finger on release. Standing still somehow. And around this time as Stray Gods was coming out, we were talking about like the 4-day work week.
4-day work week
was a big topic of conversation at the time.
But there was never there wasn't a lot of good information you could find about anybody who had attempted the 4-day work week, how it actually went.
A lot of people, when they talk about the 4-day work week, talk about the positives. And so all you hear is all of this good shit that sounds awesome and is very hard to believe, especially as people who, you know, have worked in the industry for a long time. It's very hard to imagine that you won't lose any productivity.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so we're going to do 80% workload. Great.
And so we knew that we were doing a piece of DLC for Stray Gods. It gave us an excellent opportunity to test this out. And no one was more pessimistic about this than Dave.
Yeah. Yes.
I think when we talked about it, you were very, very dubious. And still, you let us proceed. And we did it with Stray Gods Orpheus. And we decided that we were actually going to plan out Orpheus at 80% capacity. Because we wanted to make sure that we could still ship, even if it was the worst case scenario. And we were in a position to be able to do that, which was wonderful. So we did that. And it had a lot of positives.
Yeah, in terms of it, is it a pure 20% cut in productivity? No.
Yeah.
It depends on the type of work. If people were doing creative work, no. It was about maybe 10% on overall.
I think what we found anecdotally was for anything that was thought work or creative work, that wasn't necessarily like manufacturing style roles, it did speed up. But for anything that was more, I just have to do a task. Things like 3D modeling, things like, you know, grunt programming, they don't speed up that much. They kind of stay the same. And so like we actually went gold on Orpheus 10% early. Which was an excellent metric to have because it told us that we had gained 10% productivity, which meant that overall we're about the 90%. Which is still very impressive, and we were pretty happy with, especially considering the effect that it had on all of us.
As dubious as I was, now I would not give away that third day. The idea that ever going back to 5 days, having the day where what's your weekend normally? You have the day where you're social, you go maybe meet a person, and talk to somebody. And then you have your day for chores. And now there was this extra day, which I could choose just to do nothing. And that felt so good. I think the effect on the team overall can't really be calculated. And I think that's important because when we look, okay, it was overall a 10% reduction in productivity. And I think there was a an extra effect we noticed where we're like, okay, for the 4 days you're working, you have to make sure that you're focused. And everybody took that on board, and yes, they were. But I also felt like there was a lot less opportunity they felt for being social with each other. And that became an issue that we then had to like be more deliberate about the team bonding. But overall, it's like if we had overtime, if we did the normal model of crunch and a 5-day work week, could we squeeze more out of our team? Would that have helped Stray Gods? Would that have helped our position? We say, oh, it's been a great year. Would that have put us in a better position? Maybe. But what about the human cost on our team? The year it's been, having our team watch the industry be decimated with the layoffs every time and having to worry. We're very open about where we are in the state of selling our projects and the issues we're having. So they take on that stress a little bit as well, but they appreciate the honesty. But it's already hard enough to maintain morale and their mental health as it is. I couldn't imagine thinking, oh, well, we could get an extra month if we were a month earlier in release. Just by making them crunch until their little souls are shriveled. Would that be better? Would that have served us? You know, take away the 1 month, the one extra day of relaxation on the weekend. Our lesson is that no, we would not be in a better position today.
And one of the other lessons that we've learned is that sometimes it's really important to argue. As someone from a younger generation than Dave in games, I was always very conflict averse. Yeah. Especially being Australian, and I know you're going to understand this as Kiwis, we prefer passive aggressiveness over confrontation. And that can create very passive-aggressive workplaces where we don't actually confront issues in a productive or useful way and just kind of bitch to each other.
It was very foreign to me. I mean, when I started at BioWare, and we're talking about pre-HR days, fighting was the norm. You had departments that would go to start a feud with each other. We would hear screaming matches in the meeting room, and everybody would pop their heads out of their offices like gophers along the hallway, like, oh my God, what's going on? Is art and design fighting again? I had screaming matches where sometimes you were in a meeting, and if you didn't scream louder than the person across the table, you knew that they were going to get their way, and that was going to be the case. And it was okay though, because we were passionate. And that was just the norm. So coming here, having this much younger team, this very, very Aussie team, and they all are very, they have their feelings on their, pinned to their shoulders. It's like, oh, this feels very strange for me. I have to walk on eggshells. However, that taught me a lot of good things as well. Like it took a bit of adjustment, but learning to embrace empathy. And I know you probably would laugh, like, old guy doesn't know anything about empathy. It is a different way of working. And it has the negative sides, like you said, the being passive aggressive can be. It's like, oh, it sounded like they agreed with me, and Leah's like, they did not agree with you. But learning that how to walk that middle road and to start with empathy has been a great change. But I mean, it also has required some learning from Liam's side as well.
Yeah.
The how we deal with stress. Stress is going to happen. And sometimes your reaction to stress is not always, you don't end up being portrayed in a very good light. I've done it. Liam's done it. When Liam gets stressed, he does all tasks are now mine. Because you will just fuck it up. And so I'm going to do it. And if you try to question me about it, I will bite your head off in front of the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. And I remember when that happened the first time, I was like, who is this Liam?
And anyone who knows me, it's very unlike me.
How is it that this is not I'm not the one biting someone's head off? Oh my God. But I had to take him aside afterwards and express, this is not okay. And we had to learn, and this was not just him and I, this is him and I and Ellie having, when we have our meetings, that sometimes we do need to disagree and have it out. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The way it's done is important, yes, but bottling up your feelings until you're just sitting in your own resentment is not a good result either. And that's even if you're not running a company, even if you're a dev. At the end of the day, you need to stand up for yourself. And while that can be painful, in the long run, you will be better for it.
It was very funny watching Dave do a full 180 during this time and have me usually be the one like, can you have some more empathy for the team who are scared of you? And then to be the person who the team was scared of, because I was yelling. You know, I think one of the things that I'm proudest of is the relationship that Dave and Ellie and I have built over the course of running Summerfall, because we have learned how to have productive arguments and disagreements. And particularly as people who run projects and to whom other people look for how to solve problems, the way that we treat each other and the way that we solve problems does become the bar for how everyone else does that. You know, I've spoken to lots of founders since, and every time I speak to other founders, I am more and more grateful for how good our relationship is, but that was really hard work. We had lots of arguments. We had lots of bad times where we disagreed on a fundamental level about a direction.
Me turning my chair around in our office and say, all right, Liam, I'm going to bring up an uncomfortable subject.
Really, it was the most autistic way we could have solved these things, but we got through it, and it taught us so much, and we became much better leaders as a result.
Sharing ownership. I know this is back to a me thing, but I mean, like, one thing that you have to recognize is that when we all, no matter which department we're in, you don't just have to be a writer or a narrative designer to want to tell a story. At the end of the day, whether you're a programmer, whether you're in marketing or QA, you joined the game industry because you wanted to tell stories. And that's sharing ownership. When you are the part of the team that controls the creative side, there is no end to the benefits you can have by sharing a bit of that ownership of what the story is going to be, what you're going to be working on. And I wasn't used to that kind of consultation, but slowly coming to that realization. And every time when we started working on this a project named Phobos, the process I decided to take, which was consulting the team, letting them tell me about the kinds of things that they wanted to do. Sometimes they were very small. Sometimes we had some team members who were like, I don't care, and that's okay too. But some people that had very, very big goals, like things that they wanted to try. And maybe I can't do that. But it was interesting to hear them and see, well, maybe there's a piece of that I can take and put into this. And that became important. And I think that's good whether you're the person who's actually in charge of the project, because I know that's a very small number of people, even when you're higher up in a company. But I mean, it's when you control a piece of the creative pie, to remember that it behooves you to take that extra step and find out what the people who are going to be working on the thing that you're creating, what they're interested in, and what they might if they have a bit of ownership over it themselves, they might just happen to do work that's just a little bit better.
Because once it leaves your hands, they're the ones who have to make it. And so if they're invested and passionate, you know, that's critical. And as somebody who's working on a team with creative directors and senior leadership, it's also really important to advocate for the things that you feel are important. Creatively, you know, no matter what your role is, you can have input. And if that is not being asked of you, you can absolutely seek a forum for that feedback.
And I think it's also important to recognize too that sometimes you'll be a favorite and your input will be welcome, and you'll notice other team members, their input keeps getting shut down. They don't get to speak, or maybe they want to speak, but they're finding it hard. It's also not a bad idea to help them speak up and make sure that their input is heard as well, because sometimes you get some real gems that way.
over the course of running Summerfall, we've had a lot of success. We've also fucked up a lot. We've had a lot of failure. And that's a critical part of any journey as well. We were working on Stray Gods Orpheus, and we were starting to plan our next project, which Dave mentioned earlier, Phobos. It was an action RPG that we fell in love with. We worked on this for a year, building prototypes, doing pre-production, 2 prototypes. It was my job to take it to publishers and to sell it. And initially there was a lot of interest, and it was, we had something like 30, 40 pitch meetings with publishers, which is a lot. And it seemed very positive. Yeah. At the same time, this was around the time when all of Stray God's accolades were occurring. So from the outside, we were nominated for a Grammy. We were nominated for
a Grammy.
Incredible. A BAFTA. We were nominated for Australian Game of the Year, and many, many other things that we were incredibly grateful for. And at the same time as this, I'm like crying in hotel rooms at GDC, being like, why can't I fucking sell this project? This project that I'm so passionate about, that we care about so much. And it was gutting. We built these 2 prototypes. We responded to all of the feedback that we were given, but sometimes your best is not good enough.
I mean, it ended up culminating in a founders meeting. I remember Liam ended up in like this crisis where he's trying to cover all the possible directions our company could go, whether Phobos sells, which was seeming less and less likely, or whether we would have to pivot to another project like we did to Malice. And I think that was the meeting where we did that, and Liam was spiraling, and I had to intervene and say, hey, you need to stop. Like this is around the same time that the industry as a whole was started to contract. We were getting all the layoffs. At the same time, if you're not aware, at the same time what was happening is that publishers were becoming more and more reticent to take risks on anything. The pitches that would normally have worked suddenly were meeting this weird passive resistance. It's like, well, if you keep on developing it, if you're almost done the game, then maybe we'll consider it, but we'll believe it. It's like, if I could finish the game without your funding, why would I be here? But we were seeing more and more of that. So it wasn't really on Liam. And
when we went to go talk to people outside of our company, it was incredibly helpful to have that community.
Yes.
Because it turns out it wasn't just us. Everyone that we spoke to was having the same issues. It didn't matter what the quality of the project was. I'm sure there are a bunch of people in this room who have been through this recently. It is an incredibly difficult time. And though it does look like things are getting better, which is fucking exciting for all of us, it was really rough. But it was through these conversations with the community that we had built that I was able to kind of personally be like, well, yes, we didn't succeed, but this is not my failure. We could have done better, but the industry is also failing us. There are many problems at play that are incredibly complicated, and there's no one particular person to blame.
Speaking of,
it turns out there is no magic formula when we go to make projects. And I think the question that new people who want to start studios or work on their own projects or hobby projects ask me is how do you make a project that's going to be successful? To which usually I laugh hollowly because there is absolutely no way to do that. However, I'm incredibly anally retentive. I'm very marketing driven. And so before we do any project, we engage in a lot of research. And we do a lot of market research, competitor analysis. We do a lot of trends research on, what different platforms are doing, where trends are moving in terms of genre, what are the genre combinations that are doing well, what are the niches that are beginning to grow. And we gather all of this. And there have absolutely been times where we have been like, okay, that means that we should be working within this space.
It's not the only consideration. We are artistes. I think most of the people in this room are artistes, so they know what I mean. Is that we follow, to a degree, we follow our whim, and we're in this industry because we want to make the things that we like to play, obviously. But at the end of the day, you're also going to have to sell that thing, and we all recognize that this is a business as well. You need to take marketing into account early, and that's a whole separate talk. But this was a big part of our consideration in the process, and what we slowly learned is that every time we correctly identified this is the current trend, this is what's hot, this is what's selling, this is the budget range that is currently most likely to get a green light. By the time we did the work and we're actually starting the pitches,
the industry had moved on. And so we were pitching these things that were like 6 months out of date. And it became this incredibly frustrating cycle to be in. And the times where we have been successful and we have done well were always the times where we took all of that information, which is critical to discover and to learn.
It's like the alternative is not just to not do it.
Yes.
Commercialism.
You have to do it as it's context, it's not direction.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you take it all in, absorb it, and then set it aside, because ultimately you need to look at the people that you're working with, the skills that they have, the things that you do well, the things that you are all passionate about. And then you take the context of everything else and you pick a direction. And that direction shouldn't be dictated by the market. But it should be a confluence of these things. Like, what are the things that you're passionate about that you think you can do incredibly well, that only you can do because of who you are?
Leaning into what your team is actually good at, what they're interested in, leaning into the kind of pipelines your studio needs to develop over time, like what are your long-term goals? That's actually where we've had a lot more consistent success.
One of the most useful things that we ever did was create a long-term plan. And, you know, for Dave and Ellie and I, we've always wanted to move into the RPG space. That's what we're incredibly passionate about. It's all about role-playing, character-driven narratives. And so because we've always known that and had that at the forefront, it meant that as we were making all these decisions, we were able to be guided by that goal. We were always able to, you know, with each project, no matter how it did commercially, we were moving towards those goals in terms of like tooling, expertise, building understanding within the team, working on the things that we weren't good at, and learning how to embrace that discomfort and push through it with different projects. And that has become critical to us and how we work.
Embracing discomfort, that's the theme song of my 50s. So, where are we now?
We've mentioned it a few times already, but like Summerfall's in a difficult place, you know, like as many studios are right now. And as we sort of talk about that and look at it, you know, I think of like, well, we had this beautiful project that we'd spent a year making that we weren't able to sell. And that was awful. We did a Kickstarter for Malice earlier this year, which was unsuccessful. And that was also a little bit brutal. Like, because we're anally retentive, we did have like 17 backup plans, so we made sure that we were still able to ship. But that's
More backup plans than that, because Liam.
But that's the place that a lot of people in this industry are in right now. And it is always a difficult place to be, but I think that it's incredibly important for all of us, no matter what is happening in the industry, to remember what success means and how critical it is to define that.
Yeah, the typical bar for success, I think that's a lot of people who come into this industry that they have, is that every project you work on will ship, every project that ships will be commercially successful, and that your studio will continuously grow. And that's almost, in the long run, that's almost never true. I worked at BioWare, which was one of the, at its time,
The golden child.
it was the golden child of the industry, the pioneer of I mean, you can't deny that for a while it sort of determined what RPGs were thought of in the CRPG industry, but it is also meeting difficulty now. So nothing is eternal. That kind of success is almost never true. At the end of the day, your company is not your projects, but it's your team, the people that you work with. And your team will be your enduring legacy in the industry. We've always made it a point of being very honest with where Summerfall is with the people who work there. It sometimes can make it difficult for them, their mental health, they say, but they're always super appreciative that that's the case. I know that it's hard for us to talk about, like, this is how we run the company, because a lot of people can say that and
look at how great we are.
Yeah, look how great we are. And you never know for sure if your team feels the same way. And we had the unique pleasure, some of our younger team members did the keynote at GCAP last year, and they got up and talked about their experience at Summerfall. I get a bit emotional now even thinking about it, because there were tears. They said that this was for some of them, it was their first job in the industry, and they couldn't think of a better way to do it. I think that was a lot of affirmation for us.
There was a lot of stories about how they overcame challenges that, despite, you know, what at the outset seems like failures, you know, they were able to grow as individuals. That we tried to give them opportunities to move into new roles, to learn the skills that they wanted to learn, to work on the projects that they wanted to work on. And though for us, sort of from a organizational perspective, that wasn't always easy. It's incredibly difficult to always put people first in this industry. Yeah. Having moments like that makes it worthwhile because, like Dave said, it is the people. Like, the company is just an entity. It's just a legal thing. And I remind the team this all the time because what matters is the people that are in that company. Everyone you work with, the kind of culture that you create, the kind of culture you bring to a company. These are the critical things. And ultimately, if you invest in the people that you work with, no matter whether you're starting a company or you're just moving somewhere, you can't really fail. You know, our enduring legacy as a studio is always going to be the people that we've worked with and what we've taught them. And our hope is that they're going to take those things and look at the way that we did things, the way that we looked at the people before us and say, hey, that's great, that sucked, and I can do that better.
Yeah, watching some of them go on now and starting their own studios and knowing that we had a little part in that, influence on that, feels really, really good.
So we didn't want to end on a bum note. Doing something like this, building a studio, is filled with some of the most incredible memories. And we've been very, very lucky, and we worked incredibly hard. I think some of my fondest moments have been the times when we've gotten to collaborate with incredible people to bring things to life. And like I specifically remember on Stray Gods, we had an incredible cast of performers that we were very lucky to work with. And I got to write a bunch of songs on that game. And I'd be like in tears listening like to the recording as Dave's like directing them in the booth, as they're like singing the songs that I wrote.
It was like, I had that same feeling sometimes when I write dialogue and you get it back with the VO, but it was like times 10 because now it was with the music and the lyrics and stuff. These songs that we sort of had sat with for years, finally coming to life. The same thing when Austin Wintory, our composer, came to Melbourne. He worked with the Melbourne Orchestra to record most of the songs, doing the orchestra background. There was a bunch of team members, including me, in the back room listening to this happen. Like, for as long as I've been in the industry, having VO, okay, that's old hat, I guess. But to having the music you've been working on for so long being performed by an entire orchestra, whoa, talk about emotion.
And then, you know, when we announced Stray Gods, we did it with a live show in LA, which was really incredible. And we had these, you know, Laura Bailey and Anjali Bhimani and Rahul Kohli and all these, Felicia Day, all these incredible performers that we worked with, you know, doing our stuff on stage. What seemed like an incredible event, actually, 3 days beforehand was a complete disaster because it turns out our host got COVID. the channel we were going to stream on was no longer available. And again, it was the community that we had built that came to our rescue. And Troy Baker stepped in and was like, yep, I can host, like, just tell me what to do. Critical Role stepped up and said, hey, you can host it on our channel, like we'll stream it for you and we'll handle that component of it. And it came together as this like beautiful, incredible event that was incredibly affirming for everybody.
So then we had the dinner with most of the cast, and I was sitting by Laura Bailey, and I didn't know what a big Dragon Age fan she was, and I guess I accidentally told her that she was in contention for the role of the Inquisitor in Dragon Age Inquisition, and she lost her mind. And I was like, oh, should I not have mentioned that? I'm sorry. But I mean, separate from our cast, I remember we moved into this beautiful new office.
That when you get to move into an office
from the closet we were in previously.
It's such a special time.
Yeah.
And the amount of karaoke that we have done in our offices over the years is truly incredible. And if anyone says that karaoke is not a critical part of making games, they're wrong.
And I mean, we won the AGDA for 2024 Game of the Year. That was a great moment on stage. Just sitting there and being like, holding my hands like this, and the entire team coming in for a big group hug. We'll always remember that.
And then, you know, the moments that you get when you're making games where everyone's firing on all cylinders and you finally come together to play what you've been making. I remember, like, on the second Phobos prototype, you know, I think we had 2 weeks to polish it. And I remember doing a play test at that mark and being like, it's fucked. Like, we're never going to get this done. It does clunky, doesn't play well. And we were like, right, we've got 2 weeks. Let's do it. Like, what are we going to do?
You know, you spend most of your time as a dev saying, I don't know what I'm doing. This is terrible. And then every now and again, you'll have that moment where you make something, you're like, maybe I'm not that bad at this after all. That was it for us as a group, how we had sort of piled on this thing, and within the space of 2 weeks, suddenly it was amazing. And we're like, we do know what we're doing. And that is when you have those moments.
Like remembering and celebrating your successes and those moments where everyone comes together and everything just clicks, because it doesn't happen that often, and it's incredibly, incredibly useful and important.
Yeah.
One thing that you'll note with all of those memories is how critical people were to them. That, like, every single positive memory that we have of working at Summerfall, very little of it is to do with the actual projects that we worked on, and pretty much all of it is the people that we got to work with and how wonderful those experiences were and how we learned and they learned together.
Yeah, and if it sounds like we're talking about our memories as if things are coming to an end, we don't mean it that way. We're still very hopeful. We're shipping around a project right now. We have a lot of hope for it. We think there's a lot of room for hope in this industry. When they talked about how amazing the industry as a whole has been advancing, especially here in New Zealand.
You've all done so well.
So well.
Speaking as an Australian who has, you know, worked in this industry and watched from afar for a very, very long time.
Super jelly.
Now, you're doing incredibly well, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that, you know, at a time when the rest of the world is just burning, the games industry here has come together in a way that I think is not true of a lot of places across the world.
Yeah.
And it has been an incredibly wonderful experience to see that happen to, you know, an industry that, like, we care about so deeply, and that we feel like we're a part of.
Yeah, there's still a lot of room for hope, and there's still a lot of room for amazing things to happen.
You know, there's a time, during difficult times, the thing that we have to do is lean on each other. And that's something that I think that you're all uniquely well-suited to do. You're all very good at building community and valuing each other. And I think that is something that I have always deeply admired about the New Zealand development scene, is the relationships that you build with one another and the way that you work together and support each other. Especially now that things are beginning to, like, really look up. Obviously, the stats from earlier really affirm that. You know, like, this is the time when we need to value each other as individuals and not just as human capital. Like, it is important to remember that we are all people with empathy, that we are people who have limits, that we are people who communicate and have disagreements. And finding ways to come together as different people to create beautiful things is at the core of what we do. It's why we're all here. So congratulations, for one. And for two, thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Shall we head on? Thanks, Mary. Pleasure.
All right. Thank you once again, Liam and David, for your fantastic and inspirational keynote. I'm sure as we go through this weekend, we can carry these lessons with us and then take them back with us to the studio. Now, as you guys leave this room, you're about to enter a world of learning, creativity, and connection. Please make the most of it. Be inspirational, share your stories, make time for other people, because you don't know who you may spark inspiration in. You are, of course, the people at the heart of games. I must insist, however, that you do leave this room, because the Takina crew need to split it up for the upcoming talks. So without further ado, I want to wish you all a fantastic NZGDC 2025. Have a wonderful weekend.